10 showings. If you haven't had an offer within 10 showings, I would have to take a look and see something's wrong with either the price or condition of the property.
What suggestions do you have, Megan, for someone who wants to sell their home quickly?
Quickly, price. Obviously, price is a huge factor because people are still looking for deals. So price, if you want to look to sell it quickly, definitely price. I mean, drop the price. And if you want to still try to achieve top dollar and sell it quickly, you know, do a little remodeling. Put some work into the kitchen and the bathrooms, fresh paint, carpet, and then, you know, ask for a more aggressive price. But
do real estate agents normally go into a home and say, hey, paint that bathroom or take that wallpaper down or unclutter the house a little bit? Do you guys actually go into houses and make suggestions like that to your sellers?
Yeah, we don't say it that abruptly, but yeah. Yes, we'd like to make suggestions. I mean, you have to ask them what their goals are. What's your goal? What's your objective? What are you looking to achieve out of this process? And then from there, we can advise them because we can't just walk in and assume, you know, what they want. We have to ask them first and assess their needs and their wants. And
so you interview them to get the
of course, consultations are the first step.
What is the first step someone wants to take? Because there's a lot of buyers out there, a lot of potential buyers, a lot of people want to become homeowners. It's a great market right now, like you were saying, rates are low. You know, what is the first step that you would recommend to a potential buyer?
I think the first step would be to contact a realtor and actually interview realtors, 2 or 3, to find out who's going to be most compatible with you to work with.
What determines compatibility? What should a buyer be looking for in a real estate agent?
I think the buyer should be looking for a full-time realtor, somebody that's been in the marketplace for a while that's actually selling homes. And as far as, again, compatibility, making sure that they get along with each other and have the same common goal.
Right. The buyer should be making sure that the agent is listening to them because some people don't listen. You want to work with someone that you like, that you trust, and that you know because it can be a lengthy process. So you don't want to be stressed out. You want to enjoy the process.
What do you recommend or suggest to buyers who want to purchase a home?
I think the biggest thing, once you find the home, having an inspection. A home inspector is going to typically look at a house from top to bottom. The big benefits are they're going to give you life expectancy of major appliances, the appliances in the kitchen, the roof. They look at all aspects of electrical, plumbing.
Who pays for the home inspection? Who pays for that?
Typically, that's a buyer-paid item. Though sometimes sellers will do a home inspection prior to selling their house so that they can, you know, fix some things that may be wrong that they didn't know about.
Do you have home inspectors that you work with that you recommend to your buyers, or should you leave that for the sake of being a third party? Do you leave that up to the buyer alone?
I have found that it's easier to recommend people that I've worked with in the past because you know who's good. I've seen a lot of home inspections done. How many home inspections does a typical buyer see in their lifetime?
Guys, what do you do when you get a home inspection and you find out there are major repairs need to be done, like the chimney is coming away from the house, there's the fence needs to be fixed? What do you do in a case like that?
Now, I assume that you're saying that we're representing the buyer?
Yes.
In that situation, the buyer has the option, to ask the seller to fix certain items, or depending on the price that was negotiated with the seller may have sold the house as is. So the buyer may just have to accept those terms that he negotiated in the contract.
Will an appraisal not pick up things that a home inspection picks up?
Well, the appraisal it appraises the value of the house, not the bones or the
condition,
the function, normal working order of the home. So they're two separate entities. They have two different purposes.
How does one determine how much to offer for purchasing a home?
Well, again, having a professional full-time realtor run comps in the neighborhood, that is probably the first step. Typically what we do is go back anywhere from 90 days to 180 days to see what has sold in the direct area in comparison to that house. And from that point, do the add-ons or the negatives to adjust the price up and down to figure out where the most probable market price is. Right.
And you also want to know the marketplace, the neighborhood. I mean, has a house been on the market for over 100 days? Because then you can advise your client, well, they're probably getting pretty desperate. You can probably offer 20% off. But if it's a brand new listing, on the market one day. There's a lot of activity. There's not a whole lot of homes that come up for sale in this neighborhood. You're going to want to advise them to be as aggressive as possible and win the bid, especially if you're in a multiple bid situation. You want it to make the offer as most attractive as possible if they really want the home. And also calling the listing agents, to pick their brain about,
That's a good point.
what is your seller looking for? What would make this offer attractive? What will make this deal go through? Because the seller, the seller's agent, the buyer, and the buyer's agent, we all have the same end result. It's just we're batting from opposite sides of the fence.
How does a buyer know if he's going to be overpaying for a home that's a spot home or a foreclosure or a short sale? Do those differ when you're buying? And how does one know if they're going to overpay for that?
Well, typically, most people are going to be getting a mortgage. And even if somebody's paying cash, I recommend that they pay for an appraisal and make that a contingency in their offer. So that if for some reason the appraisal does not come in at the sale price, that can either be renegotiated or, again, if it's a condition in the contract, then the buyer can walk away and get their earnest money deposit back.
Right. No one's going to overpay after what we've been through. The lender is there to order the appraisal and make sure it's not $1 less than what the sales price is. So they can rest assured that if they're getting a loan, they're going to be protected by that appraisal.
We touched upon this briefly earlier. So right now, is it a buyer's or a seller's market, and why?
I feel, for me, all year, it's been mostly a seller's market. Now, there's different pockets. If you're talking about $1 million homes or more, that's always a buyer's market because you've got a smaller pool of people who can afford those homes. But under 600, 700,000, it's a seller's market.
There's that many offers out there.
Well, because inventory is so low, and so there's more buyers than inventory. It's basic economics. It's supply and demand.
Should buyers expect sellers to pay closing costs?
No.
How often are you coming across that?
Typically, most agents will price properties and they'll tell their sellers that more than likely a contract offer is going to come in with the buyer asking for closing costs. So I think it's fair to assume if you're a seller in the marketplace that you're going to pay anywhere from 1% to 3% of the buyer's closing costs.
Right. Another trick is to just go over a little bit over asking price and ask for that closing cost back because it helps your buyer keep his cash in his wallet. And then the seller is still kind of netting what they were hoped to do.
So long as it appraises out, that's an effective
Exactly.
tool.
Exactly.
Now, a few years ago, multiple offers were commonplace. There was escalations. Can you explain what escalations are to our viewers?
An escalation clause?
Yes.
When you're having a multiple bid situation, I have this a lot now with banks.
Today?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, just the last couple of weeks, I had 2 banks. I'm in the middle of negotiations with 2 banks. There's numerous offers on both of these foreclosures, and the bank.
Foreclosures. That's a very important part.
Right. And so, with regular sales too, I'll get to that in a second. But with foreclosures, they'll come back and say highest and best, which, at that point, you've got your last chance. You know that we've had multiple offers. They usually send you a form, and then you just do highest and best, and you sign off, and then.
Go ahead.
Now, to follow up on that, there's 2 different forms. The form that she was talking about was from the banks. There is in a regular sale an escalation clause. And what that does, if you've got a buyer and they're willing to pay, if the property's listed for $500,000, but they're willing to pay $1,000 over anybody's offer up to $510,000, basically it puts it in writing so that the sellers can review all of the escalation clauses at the same time and find out who's actually going to be the high bidder.
Now, those were commonplace back in the day. How often is that happening today, after the mortgage balloon busted, if you will?
You're not seeing it today in the sense of normal sales.
Not on normal sales, but you are on foreclosures. Okay. Okay. Why aren't you seeing as much today? You said inventory was low. Why aren't we seeing these escalation clauses?
Well, I think, again, the market is good and we're coming back, but it's slowly coming back. So as realtors in the marketplace, we know that you can't push the price to where it's a ridiculous amount. If you're writing an offer that is going to be an appraisal problem, the other agent or the seller is not going to accept your offer anyway.
We've only got a minute or 2 left. What can a buyer do if they submitted a contract and they were not the winning bid? What other options are left to them?
And I'm glad you brought that up. if someone really likes a house and they've made an offer and they didn't get that property, the one thing that they can do is write a backup contract or be a backup contract. Basically, if the seller's willing to negotiate that second backup offer with the buyer, they become a backup contract, and that way if something happens to the first contract, this one will take over and it'll be the next in line.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions to sellers to make their home stand out?
Remodel if you can. You can stage your home, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. But if you can to update the bathrooms, the kitchens, that goes a long way because buyers want to just move into a place that's ready, that feels newer, that they don't have to put a lot of work into themselves because they're already shelling out so much money for this down payment. They probably don't have a whole lot of cash to remodel. So if the seller can do that, it'll probably sell quicker and they'll get more money. They'll definitely see the return on their investment.
Now you mentioned remodeling. What about the curb appeal or the outside of the home?
That's probably one of the most important things because that's
Really?
the first thing that a buyer's going to see. Typically what we recommend is to paint all the exterior trim, make sure the front door is painted. Asphalt driveways should be resealed. I recommend fresh mulch, even if it's wintertime, to just get a fresh look outside.
Right.
And obviously have the grass cut and edged.
No trash, first impression.
Guys, thanks for being here and sharing your expertise. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
I would like to thank our guests Megan Bailey and Tim Horinko for being here today and sharing their expertise. Now we realize we've just thrown a lot of info at you and that you may have questions. If you do have some questions, just visit my website at markrigney.org or you can email us. Our emails will be listed on the screen below. We will read and answer some of your questions on our next show. On behalf of my friend and colleague Megan Bailey, thank you for watching Mortgage Solutions with Mark Rigney. We will see you next time.